The concept of battling it out with giant mechs and robots isn't a new one. There are tons of games, movies, and animes dedicated to the concept. Other franchises such as the Titanfall series, Gundam, and the Pacific Rim films have been cashing in for years on the desire to experience the thrills of getting behind the controls of these machines. With the right execution, getting behind those controls of these massive machines in the video game world can be an exhilarating experience. In order to deliver that sort of experience though, there are a couple things you need to nail, namely a grand sense of scale and the feeling of wielding heavy firepower. Techwars 2 Online aims to deliver such an experience, and while it does a few things right, unfortunately it fails to deliver in these key areas as well as a few others. What is Techwars Online 2? Well, it's a team-based real-time battle game that sees you battling it out online with up to 20 players. Set in the year 2050, the world has fallen into complete anarchy, and the nations fight it out using these massive mechs from one of two factions, either the US created Kato or the Russian Domination. Each side offers different mechs with different weapons and capabilities. However, they all fall into one of four classes. There are the Scouts, which are fast moving but weak when it comes to both their firepower and their armor, Destroyers, which are slow moving but absolutely deadly from a distance, Stormtroopers, which are the all-around most balanced and efficient option, and Support, which, just like the name says, are meant to provide support to your team with additional ammo and armor. All of the battles are played out online, which means there's no campaign or solo experience to be had. That would be fine if the player pool were larger, but as of this time there are only a couple of hundred players online at the busiest times of the day. This means you're pretty much out of luck if nobody's online. That player base really needs to grow drastically if this game is going to maintain itself in the long run, or the developer needs to add something in to hold players over when playing by themselves. I've never been one for turn-based strategy style games. Thankfully, Techwars utilizes a real-time gameplay system. You are in complete control of your mech at all times, handling its movement and weapons as you see fit. The mechs move with the traditional WASD keyboard controls while aiming is handled with your mouse cursor. I love this setup because it allows you to remain mobile in your firefights, running in one direction and firing in another. Plus, the aiming mechanic in the game gives you ability to truly pinpoint where your shots land. You can lay down true cover fire for your teams as you dictate where your shots will land, not just picking out the general direction that they fire. When you get in the midst of a large firefight with both teams really going at it, things get pretty fun, but unfortunately that only lasts for a few seconds and happens just a couple of times in a match. Other than that brief moment of tension and excitement, the game fails to deliver on the giant mech experience gamers come into it looking for. And those intense battles could be a lot more fun if the weapons actually felt like they had some sort of muscle behind them. As it stands now, pretty much every weapon in the game sort of feels the same. Whether I'm firing off an entire coil of ammo through a chain gun, or firing a laser or rockets at everything in my path, they all feel exactly the same. You might as well be using the same gun because none of them have that oomph you come to expect from a huge robot. While the controls for movement work, the environment will still constantly prove to be in your way. I say environment because it can truly be just about anything that you run across. Your mech will get caught up and halt your progress while attempting to move across even the simplest things on the battlefield. I've gotten hung up on random hills, fences, and various objects just laying around the game world that, at other times, have either been easily knocked out of my way or I've been able to run right over them. It seems like you never know when you're going to get hung up, and it's crazy too because there's really not a lot in this world to run into. The maps are pretty bare. Considering that the game world is supposed to be interactive and destructible, one would expect there to be a lot more to blow down and knock around. As it stands now, you'll find an occasional grouping of buildings and smaller obstacles scattered around in what seems like random fashion. There just needs to be more. As for that sense of scale I mentioned earlier that a game like this needs, it's nowhere to be found. Sure, you're controlling robots that are fighting beside buildings and mountains, but the perspective you view it from doesn't give you any sense of the size they should be. These could very well be just human soldiers fighting it out in the open fields and villages. Techwars 2 is an okay game with a ton of potential. However, in its current form, it has a long way to go before it sees that potential and becomes a viable product for a full release. Hopefully, the developer sticks with it and listens to the player base, and continues to make improvements and make the game something that will garner a dedicated fan base. The presentation and visuals could use some heavy improvement, and some of the finer details definitely need upped, such as giving the mechs that oomph I mentioned and making the game world more interesting and exciting. In its current beta form, I'm giving Techwars Online 2 a 4 out of 10.